where the darkness whispers truths that daylight refuses to acknowledge, where the veil between our world and the next grows thin. Tonight, I invite you to step into the sterile corridors of institutions meant for healing, but sometimes become gateways to something far more sinister. Hospitals, places where life begins and ends, where hope and despair walk hand in hand through fluorescent-lit hallways. But when the sun sets and the night shift begins, these halls of healing transform into something else entirely. The shadows grow longer, the silence becomes oppressive, and those who work through the darkest hours sometimes witness things that medical science cannot explain. Tonight, I bring you 3 disturbing true accounts from hospital workers who experienced the unexplainable during their night shifts. Stories collected from nurses, security guards, and orderlies who have agreed to share their encounters on the condition that their identities remain protected. So dim your lights, lock your doors, and prepare yourself for 3 true hospital night shift horror stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about what happens in hospitals after midnight. Let's begin. Story 1. The Woman in Room 237. Our first story comes from a registered nurse named Sarah, who worked the night shift at a regional hospital in rural Pennsylvania for 7 years. Sarah was no stranger to death. In her line of work, it was an inevitable companion. But what she experienced one October night in 2019 would shake her understanding of the boundary between life and death. It was a Tuesday night, unusually quiet for the intensive care unit. Sarah had only 3 patients under her care that evening. Mr. Chen in room 235, recovering from heart surgery. Mrs. Davidson in room 236, a stroke victim showing promising signs of recovery. And room 237, which was supposed to be empty. The hospital had a policy about room 237. It was rarely assigned to patients, a quirk that Sarah had noticed but never questioned. The room had been vacant for nearly 3 weeks, sitting at the end of the hallway like a dark mouth waiting to swallow the unwary. At approximately 2:47 a.m., Sarah was updating patient charts at the nurses' station when the call light for room 237 illuminated on her panel. Her blood ran cold. Call lights are activated by patients when they need assistance, but room 237 was empty, had been empty for weeks. She stared at the glowing button, telling herself it was an electrical malfunction. These things happened in old buildings, faulty wiring, nothing more. But hospital protocol demanded she investigate. With a deep breath, Sarah stood and walked down the corridor toward room 237. The hallway seemed to stretch longer than usual, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Her footsteps echoed too loudly in the silence. When she reached the door, she paused, her hand on the handle. From inside, she could hear something, a sound that shouldn't be there. Humming. A woman's voice, soft and melodic, humming a lullaby. Sarah's training overrode her fear. She opened the door, and what she saw would haunt her for years to come. The room was occupied. In the bed lay an elderly woman, perhaps in her 80s, wearing a faded hospital gown. Her silver hair spread across the pillow like a halo. She was humming softly, her eyes closed, a peaceful smile on her wrinkled face. But here's what made Sarah's skin crawl. The woman was translucent. Sarah could see through her, could see the pillow and sheets beneath her semi-transparent form. "Excuse me," Sarah heard herself say, her voice trembling. "Ma'am, are you okay?" The woman's eyes opened. They were cloudy, unseeing, yet somehow fixed directly at Sarah. The humming stopped. "Have you seen my baby?" she asked, her voice distant, echoing as if coming from the bottom of a well. "I can't find my baby. They took her away. They said she didn't make it, but I can hear her crying. Can you hear her crying?" Sarah stood frozen, her rational mind battling with what her eyes were showing her. "Ma'am, there's no baby here." The woman's expression changed. The peaceful smile vanished, replaced with something darker. Her translucent face contorted in anguish and rage. "Liar!" she screamed, her voice no longer distant, but piercing, inhuman. "I can hear her! I can hear her!" The temperature in the room plummeted. Sarah could see her breath misting in the suddenly frigid air. The heart monitor that should have been silent roared to life, showing a flatline pattern accompanied by a continuous, ear-peaching tone. The IV stand in the corner began to swing back and forth, gaining momentum, though no one touched it. Sarah stumbled backward, her training abandoning her as primal fear took over. She ran from the room, slamming the door behind her. At the nurse's station, she grabbed the phone with shaking hands and called security. 2 guards arrived within minutes. Sarah explained what she'd seen, watching their skeptical expressions. But when they checked room 237, it was completely empty. The bed was made with crisp, clean sheets. No woman, no sounds. The temperature was normal. The heart monitor was unplugged and silent. The next morning, Sarah went to her supervisor and requested information about room 237's history. What she learned made her blood run cold. In 1987, a woman named Eleanor Hartman had been admitted to that exact room after giving birth to a stillborn daughter. Eleanor had refused to accept her daughter's death, insisting she could hear the infant crying. She became increasingly agitated, her mental state deteriorating rapidly. On her 3rd night in the hospital, Eleanor had somehow obtained a scalpel from a supply cart and taken her own life in room 237, bleeding out in the bed while nurses worked frantically to save her. Since then, night shift workers have reported strange occurrences in and around room 237. Call lights activating on their own, the sound of a woman humming, the cries of a baby that couldn't possibly be there. Most reported it on Tuesday nights, specifically on the anniversary week of Eleanor's death. Sarah experienced this phenomenon on a Tuesday in October. When she checked the exact date of Eleanor's death, it was October 23rd, 1987. The night Sarah saw her was October 23rd, 2019, exactly 32 years to the day. Sarah transferred to the day shift the following week. She still works at that hospital, but she refuses to work nights, and she never, ever goes near room 237.
Story 2. The Shadow Figure.
Our second story comes from Marcus, a hospital security guard who worked at a large medical center in Seattle, Washington. Marcus had been in security for 15 years, 10 of those spent walking the empty corridors of hospitals during the graveyard shift. He'd seen everything from domestic disputes in the emergency room to patients attempting to leave against medical advice. He considered himself unshakable, a man grounded firmly in reality. That changed during the winter of 2021. Marcus's shift began at 11 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m. His duties included regular patrols of all 7 floors, checking the doors were secured, monitoring the parking structures, and responding to any calls for assistance. The hospital was a sprawling complex, parts of it dating back to the 1950s, with newer wings added over the decades like layers of sediment. The oldest section, the North Wing, was scheduled for demolition. It had been closed for approximately 6 months, deemed too expensive to renovate and no longer up to modern building codes. Marcus's patrol route included walking through this abandoned section once per shift, ensuring no one had broken in and that everything remained secure. He hated the North Wing. There was something wrong about that place, something that went beyond its peeling paint and outdated equipment. The air felt heavy there, oppressive, like the atmosphere before a violent storm. But Marcus pushed these feelings aside. He was a professional. He didn't believe in ghosts or supernatural nonsense. On a frigid night in January, Marcus began his midnight patrol of the North Wing. He unlocked the heavy door that separated the active hospital from the abandoned section and stepped into the darkness. The electricity had been shut off to save money, so Marcus relied on his flashlight, its beam cutting through the blackness like a knife. The hallway stretched before him, patient rooms lining both sides, their doors hanging open like screaming mouths. His footsteps echoed in the emptiness. Everything seemed normal at first. Dust motes danced in his flashlight beam, old gurneys sat abandoned against walls, standard abandoned building stuff. Then he saw it. At the far end of the hallway, perhaps 50 feet away, stood a figure. It was tall, impossibly tall, at least 7 feet in height, but it had no features. It was a solid black silhouette, darker than the surrounding shadows, like someone had cut a human-shaped hole in reality itself. Marcus froze, his hand instinctively moving to his radio. "Security, to North Wing. I have a possible intruder." The figure didn't move, didn't respond. It simply stood there, and even without visible eyes, Marcus could feel it watching him. "Sir or ma'am, this is a restricted area. You need to leave immediately." Silence. Then, slowly, the figure began to move, but it didn't walk. It glided, smoothly, silently, moving toward Marcus with unnatural speed. No footsteps, no sound, just that terrible, impossible approach. Marcus turned and ran. He'd never run from anything in his life, had faced down aggressive visitors and violent patients without flinching. But this was different. Every instinct in his body screamed danger in capital letters written in fire across his consciousness. He burst through the door into the active hospital section, slamming it shut behind him and leaning against it, his heart hammering in his chest. His radio crackled. It was his supervisor responding to his earlier call about an intruder. "Marcus, this is Control. What's your status?" Marcus grabbed his radio, breathing hard. "Control, I saw someone in the North Wing, a tall figure. They moved toward me. I've exited the area and secured the door." "Copy that. Do you need backup for a sweep?" Marcus looked at the closed door behind him. Through the small window, he could see only darkness. "Affirmative. Request backup before re-entering." 2 other guards arrived within 10 minutes. Together, they entered the North Wing, flashlights sweeping the corridor. They searched every room, every closet, every possible hiding spot. Nothing. The North Wing was empty. But here's what made the incident truly disturbing. When they reviewed the security footage, it showed Marcus entering the North Wing alone. The camera at the entrance clearly captured him opening the door, walking in, and then running out approximately 8 minutes later. But the hallway camera, which should have shown the corridor where Marcus saw the figure, that camera showed nothing but static during the exact time Marcus was there. 8 minutes of pure white noise. Then it resumed normal function the moment Marcus left. The technical team checked the camera. It was functioning perfectly. No explanation for the malfunction. Marcus reported the incident to his supervisor, who listened with a neutral expression. When Marcus finished, the supervisor sighed and pulled out a folder from a locked drawer. Inside were similar reports. 7 other security guards dating back to 2015 had reported seeing the same shadow figure in the north wing. Same description, impossibly tall, solid black, moving without walking. Each time, the security camera footage showed the same pattern: static during the encounter, normal function before and after. One of those guards quit the same night he saw the figure. 3 others requested transfers to different facilities. 2 refused to ever patrol the north wing again. The hospital administration had kept the reports quiet, not wanting to alarm staff or create superstitious fear. Marcus's supervisor made him a deal. He could request a transfer with no questions asked, or he could continue his job with the north wing removed from his patrol route. Another guard would handle that section. Marcus stayed, but he made it clear he would never step foot in that abandoned wing again. The north wing was demolished 8 months later, in September 2021. During the demolition, workers discovered something disturbing in the walls of the hallway where Marcus and others had seen the shadow figure. Hidden behind plaster and ancient wallpaper were dozens of old patient wristbands dating back to the 1960s and 70s. All of them belonged to patients who had died in that wing. No one knows why, no one knows who, but the shadow figure hasn't been seen since the north wing came down. Marcus still works at that hospital. He still walks the halls alone at night. But now, whenever he passes the empty lot where the north wing once stood, he walks a little faster, and he never, ever looks at it directly. Because sometimes, out of the corner of his eye, he swears he sees something tall and impossibly dark, standing in that vacant space, watching the hospital with eyes it doesn't have.
Story 3: The Elevator to the 4th Floor. Our final story tonight comes from Jennifer, an orderly who worked at a psychiatric hospital in Massachusetts. Jennifer's job was to transport patients between floors, deliver medication and supplies, and assist nurses with various tasks during the night shift. It was demanding work, both physically and emotionally, but Jennifer found it rewarding. The psychiatric hospital where she worked was a 5-story building constructed in the early 1900s, though it had been renovated multiple times over the decades. Each floor served a different purpose. The first floor housed administration and admitting. The second floor was for patients requiring short-term care. The third floor handled long-term patients. The fourth floor, well, the fourth floor was different. The fourth floor was the secure psychiatric unit, reserved for patients who posed a danger to themselves or others. It was accessed by a special elevator that required a security key to reach that floor. Heavy doors, reinforced glass, everything designed to keep dangerous patients contained. But here's the thing. The fourth floor had been closed for 3 years. Budget cuts had forced the hospital to consolidate, moving the secure patients to a newer facility across town. The fourth floor now sat empty, locked and abandoned, though the elevator still functioned and would still go there if someone used the security override key. Jennifer had been working at the hospital for just 6 months when she experienced what she can only describe as the most terrifying night of her life.
It was a quiet Thursday in March 2022, around 3:30 a.m. Jennifer was transporting clean linens from the basement to the third floor using the service elevator. She entered the elevator, pressed the button for the third floor, and waited as the doors closed. The elevator began to rise, first floor, second floor, but instead of stopping at the third floor, it continued upward, fourth floor. The elevator stopped and the doors opened. Jennifer stared in confusion at the dimly lit hallway beyond. She hadn't pressed the button for the fourth floor, didn't have the security key to access it, yet here she was. "Hello?" she called out, thinking perhaps someone else had called the elevator. No response. The hallway was long and silent, patient rooms lining both sides. Emergency lighting cast everything in a sickly yellow-green glow. Jennifer was about to press the button to close the doors when she heard it. Singing. A child's voice, sweet and pure, singing "Ring Around the Rosie." Jennifer's breath caught in her throat. There shouldn't be any children on this floor. There shouldn't be anyone on this floor. The fourth floor had been empty for 3 years. "Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies." The voice was coming from one of the rooms down the hallway, room 412, its door slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness visible through the crack. Every rational part of Jennifer's brain screamed at her to close the elevator doors and leave immediately. But something else, some inexplicable compulsion, drew her forward. She stepped out of the elevator, leaving her cart of linens behind. The hallway seemed to stretch longer with each step she took. The singing continued, that sweet child's voice, but there was something wrong with it, something hollow and distant, like a recording played through broken speakers. "Ashes, ashes, we all fall down." Jennifer reached room 412. Through the crack in the door, she could see nothing but darkness. The singing had stopped. Silence pressed against her eardrums like water at great depth. She pushed the door open. The room was empty. No furniture, no equipment, just bare walls and a dust-covered floor. But on the far wall, someone had drawn something. Jennifer stepped closer, her flashlight illuminating the image. It was a drawing of a little girl, rendered in what looked like charcoal, or maybe something darker. The girl was smiling, but her eyes were hollow black circles. Surrounding her were drawings of other children, dozens of them, all with the same empty eyes, and written beneath in shaky letters, "We're still here." Jennifer's blood turned to ice. She stumbled backward, turning to flee the room, but the door had closed. She grabbed the handle, twisted it, locked. The temperature dropped dramatically. She could see her breath misting in front of her face. And then, in the darkness of the room, she saw them. Children, translucent forms, perhaps a dozen of them, standing in a circle around her. They were holding hands, swaying gently, and as Jennifer watched in horror, they began to sing. "Ring around the rosy." Their voices were layered, discordant, some young, some older, creating a horrible harmony that made Jennifer want to scream. "Pocket full of posies." They moved closer, the circle tightening around her. She could see through them, could see their old-fashioned clothing, could see the sadness and anger in their ghostly faces. "Ashes, ashes." Jennifer finally found her voice. She screamed, a raw, primal sound of pure terror. She threw herself at the door, pounding on it with her fists. "Help! Somebody help!" We all fall down! The ghostly children fell in unison, collapsing to the floor, and then, just as suddenly as they'd appeared, they were gone. The temperature normalized. The door, previously locked, swung open at Jennifer's next touch. She ran down the hallway, ran to the elevator, which was miraculously still there, doors open, as if waiting for her. She dove inside and frantically pressed the button for the ground floor. The doors closed. The elevator descended. When the doors opened on the first floor, Jennifer stumbled out, gasping for breath. The night supervisor found her there 10 minutes later, sitting on the floor, trembling, tears streaming down her face. Jennifer told the supervisor everything. To her surprise, the supervisor didn't dismiss her story. Instead, the woman's expression grew grave. She helped Jennifer to her feet and took her to her office, where she pulled out an old file box from a shelf. Inside were newspaper clippings from 1962. The headlines made Jennifer's stomach turn. Tragic fire at State Psychiatric Hospital. 13 children dead. The article described a devastating fire that had occurred on the 4th floor of the hospital 60 years ago. 13 children, all patients in the pediatric psychiatric ward, had perished when a fire broke out in the night. The official report blamed faulty electrical wiring, but the article hinted at darker possibilities. Mentions of negligent supervision, locked doors that prevented escape. By the time staff reached the 4th floor, all 13 children had succumbed to smoke inhalation. The 4th floor was rebuilt afterward, but had always been considered cursed by hospital staff. Strange occurrences were common. The sounds of children playing when no children were present, toys moving on their own, and always the singing of Ring Around the Rosie, a song that some historians believe originated as a rhyme about the plague and death. The night supervisor told Jennifer that she was the 7th staff member in the past 2 decades to report an encounter on the 4th floor. Each report was similar: the elevator going to the 4th floor unbidden, the sound of children singing, the feeling of being trapped. The hospital administration had tried to keep it quiet, fearing lawsuits and bad publicity. Jennifer quit that night. She didn't even finish her shift, just collected her belongings and walked out. She never returned, not even to pick up her final paycheck. The hospital mailed it to her. A year later, the hospital announced that the building would be closing permanently. A new facility was being constructed on the outskirts of town. The old building, with its 5 floors and its dark history, would be demolished. Jennifer attended the demolition from a distance, standing across the street as the wrecking ball swung. When the 4th floor came down, she swears she heard it one more time, carried on the wind. Children's voices singing in harmony. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. The building is gone now, replaced by a parking lot, but sometimes people who park there late at night report strange occurrences: car doors locking on their own, the sound of children laughing, and occasionally, written in the dust on their windshield,
children's voices singing in harmony. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall. The building is gone now, replaced by a parking lot. But sometimes people who park there late at night report strange occurrences: car doors locking on their own, the sound of children laughing, and occasionally, written in the dust on their windshields, a simple message: "We're still here." 3 stories, 3 hospitals, 3 encounters with something beyond our understanding. Sarah, who saw the ghost of a grieving mother in room 237. Marcus, who faced the shadow figure in the abandoned north wing. And Jennifer, who stumbled into a tragedy that refuses to fade even 60 years later. These stories remind us that hospitals, despite their modern equipment and scientific precision, remain places where the boundary between life and death is at its thinnest, where the veil separates our world from whatever lies beyond. And sometimes, on the night shift, when the halls are quiet and the living sleep, that veil tears just a little. The people who shared these stories are real. Their experiences, as impossible as they may seem, are real to them. They carry these memories, these encounters with the unexplainable, as permanent scars on their psyche. So, the next time you find yourself in a hospital late at night, pay attention. Listen carefully, because you might hear something that shouldn't be there. You might see something moving in the shadows, and if you do, well, now you know you're not alone. You're not the first to experience the unexplainable in these halls of healing. This has been Mr. Shadow's Stories, your guide through the darkness that lurks in the corners of our world. If you enjoyed tonight's journey into the unknown, please subscribe to this channel for more true horror stories. Like this video, share it with fellow seekers of the supernatural, and leave a comment telling me about your own paranormal experiences. Remember, the shadows are always watching, and I'll be here, waiting in the darkness, ready to share more tales of terror. Until next time, stay safe and maybe avoid the night shift.